Hey besties, it's your girl Rochelle, and I'm an avid traveler who's been to over 40 countries, including 11 African nations. I solo backpacked from Southern Africa to North Africa, and it changed my life. I was also keeping an eye out for the countries that I may want to settle down in, and this is just my raw opinions about traveling through Africa, but this video is specifically about my experience visiting Lesotho, which is a landlocked country in South Africa. So here are the categories that I will be covering today, so stay tuned. So I want to start by talking about my first impressions and my journey getting to Lesotho. As I previously said, Lesotho is a landlocked country in South Africa. So I traveled from Johannesburg to Cape Town, and then after I visited Cape Town, I took a bus to Bloemfontein, and then I took a bus from Bloemfontein to Maseru, Lesotho. And it was only about a 2-hour bus from Bloemfontein to Maseru. And I will admit, I was caught slipping. I did not plan like I should have planned. I did not research like I should have researched. And I was winging it, okay? I was winging it. It's embarrassing to admit that now, but I was really just taking life day by day, low key hour by hour. I had an itinerary that I had created, but things happen when you're backpacking, okay? So when I got to Lesotho, I didn't have a hotel. I didn't have any tours planned. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't even have any data. So when I first walked into the country after I got off of the bus, I got my passport stamped. I went to go get a SIM card at the border. And luckily, when I was waiting for my SIM card, I ran into a woman and she was very helpful. It was a Basotho woman. She was beautiful, kind woman. We chatted and I told her I didn't even have a place to, well, actually, rewind. I did book an Airbnb like literally a few minutes prior. However, I didn't have any data to talk to the host. That was a problem now that I remember. I booked an Airbnb, but I didn't have any data to communicate with the host. Nobody had like a hotspot. Nobody had Wi-Fi at the border. So that's when I started asking people for help. Like I told the woman, I can't even talk to my host. I don't have a place to go now. And so she made a few calls and she was able to find somebody that was able to take me to a hotel. And I booked like I think 3 nights at the hotel. And she also put me in contact with a tour guide who was able to book a tour with me the next day. So I got super lucky. Everything that I needed was, taken care of as soon as I walked through the border. And I'm very grateful for the kind, Basotho people that I met at the border. And so, yes, I got to my hotel. I settled in. The hotel was very nice, very exquisite, high quality, hot water, comfortable bed, all the above. And I have no complaints when it comes to the hotel. I really enjoyed it. I actually got a chance to talk to the owner, and she said that she used to be a banker, but she decided to get into hospitality. And it was a great experience staying in that hotel, especially for it being so last minute. Beggars really can't be choosers, but I'm glad that I got a great hotel. And I started communicating with the tour guide, and we created an itinerary so that I could touch basically all the hot spots within Lesotho, and try to see as much as I could see, and take it from there. So I was based in a city called Maseru, which was along the border of Lesotho. But then the next day, my tour guide picked me up and we went to Semonkong. I don't want to butcher this, so I'm going to look up the name. We went to Semonkong to go to the Maletsunyane Falls, which is the largest single drop waterfall in the world, meaning that the water falls down and doesn't touch anything else until it hits the ground. So Maletsunyane is the largest single drop waterfall in the world. It was beautiful. I went on a horseback ride. I walked down the hill, but honestly, it was a little bit scary because the rocks were slippery walking down to the waterfall, well, down to the ledge rather. But then I walked back up on the horse. I took a horseback ride back up. That was pretty cool. And so that was a beautiful experience going to Semonkong. And then not too far away, I went to a a blanket tour, which in Lesotho, the blankets signify age, gender, and status. So it gets very cold in Lesotho. It's actually one of the only countries in Africa that has snow every year. So a lot of people travel to Lesotho to do the snow activities. So the Basotho people wear blankets, and they have different symbols that indicate age, gender, and status. So on the tour, I was able to learn about their blankets and the culture, the historical evolution of the blankets. I also got dressed in the blankets, which I was really honored and excited to be able to wear this very traditional piece of garment that is very important in their culture. They dressed me in the blanket. I took pictures with the beautiful, Basotho people, and I really loved that tour. And then after that, we went to Motlong, which is a city, and we went to Thaba, Bosiu Cultural Village, and he took me on a tour through a replica of a compound that the Basotho people traditionally stayed in the past. And he was sharing with me the customs and traditions that the Basotho people had in the past and currently, mainly in the past. And I learned a lot of interesting things. I think the most interesting thing that I learned at the cultural village is that if a little girl and, let me rephrase that. I'm trying to be careful with my words. If, two children were arranged to be married, the, let's just say the woman had to sleep with the father to learn how to have sex before she was allowed to marry their son, which I thought was very interesting. But that was one of the cultures that I learned about. I don't think that it's happening today. Don't worry. But this was one of their practices that they had in the past.
Okay. So to realize that we have some clicks being brought from the Bushman's language, right, just like yes. In Sesotho, we haven't got that. Okay. So according to the Bushman's language, I stood for the name of the person, which is QA. Okay. Just like Kato, Kalabani, Kacha, and others. Mm-hmm. And K stood for the mountains. Mm-hmm. Like Kreme, Katwane, and others. Yes. And K stood for the sharp point, as you're going to see that mountain. Okay. And Ko stood for the plateaus, like Kumukumung, Kokolosin, Kokolosani, and Ku stood for the water. We have a large river called Semonkong, and others. Okay, awesome. I did take a few Zulu classes. I took a Osha class, so I've been practicing a little bit. Oh, yes. Just a little bit. That you know how to Zagbona. It is difficult. Yes, yes. Awonani Njani, okay. Yeah, Njani, Lami, Ngu Rochelle. That's okay. At least you know something. Yes, okay. Yes, something. Now we are coming to see our cultural village. Okay, to awesome. See how Basotho were capturing the cattle, capturing the wives. So I'm sure to say we have seen this, we have heard about. So it's better to stop this, what we are doing. So some they understand, some they don't understand. That's why when you get here, you try to visit the places where the groups are to talk about. So they join him. So that's why we say we are celebrating that. So that was a very intriguing and informational cultural village tour that I went on. And then after that, we went to the Kiluane Mountains, which inspires the Mokoroflo hat. The Basotho people have a very unique hat. It's like a cone shape. I wanted to buy one, but it was just too big. So I ended up buying like a little souvenir, a little mini hat on a keychain. But I really love their hats. And it's inspired by this mountain, which is known as the mountain that started it all, which is basically a meeting point, which started the history of Basotho people in Lesotho.
So, yes, those are the main areas that I went to in Lesotho. I was only there for a few days, and I'm grateful that I was able to get a really in-depth cultural tour and visit multiple cities in a very short period of time. And that was basically my introduction of how I got to Lesotho, even though I was literally winging it and flying by the seat of my pants. So, let's move on to the pros and the cons. The pros for Lesotho for me is the landscape. Lesotho has the most unique landscape and mountains that I've ever seen. The mountains, they're just so unique. Like, I've never seen mountains. It's just like they had ridges. I've never seen mountains that had shapes like that or that was even like structured like that. It is the most unique landscape that I've ever seen in any country. Lesotho truly is one of a kind. I can honestly say, after going to over 40 countries, I've never seen mountains like this. I've never seen beautiful landscape like this. And that is the best part of my experience in Lesotho. Also, the weather. I enjoyed the weather. It did get a little chilly sometimes, but it was like mild. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It does snow in the winter months, but it was mild and I enjoyed the weather. I didn't need super hot weather. And also, let's see here. The culture. Yes, I also really enjoyed the culture. I really enjoyed the blanket tour that I went on. The food, as far as the food, I didn't really get a chance to really go in depth with the food. One of the most popular and important foods in their culture is maize, which is their corn. And so I did have the typical roasted corn, which to be honest, like it was just corn on fire. So, corn on fire. That's all. And it was very hard to chew. As I was chewing it, I was like, wow, the Basotho people have jaws of steel because this is this is tough. It's tough. I was struggling. They have jaws of steel because that roasted corn is something else. They also have a maize drink. I don't want to butcher the name, but I'll put it on the screen. That they traditionally drink for breakfast. But maize is their staple. It is the most important foods in their culture. I was asking people if there was any traditional restaurants that I could go to, but I just didn't have time to make it to one. But I did try the roasted corn. I tried their maize drinks, and I also tried. I supported a local business by eating a burger at a food truck. So that was about as far. I went to KFC, I think. That was about as far as I went as far in the food department. I ate at the hotel, fruit and breakfast and stuff, but that was as far as I got within the few short days. But I really loved their rich culture and loved learning about their rich culture. I really wish that I would have had the chance to go to like a traditional restaurant and eat just, a various different types of their traditional foods, but it probably would have just been based in corn because maize is their most important staple food. All right, so let's get to the cons. These cons are mainly related to just the logistics. One of the reasons why I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants is because it was very difficult for me to find any information regarding tourism with Lesotho. And they said that they're trying to, heighten their tourism, but it is difficult to find some things to do. I was planning my Africa tour for months, and so I was planning and I was researching and I was emailing people and trying to get in contact with people, but it was hard to contact anybody. It was hard to find a driver. It was just hard. That's why I just kind of showed up and I was like, okay, let's just see what happens, because it's kind of hard to plan logistically and get in contact with people logistically. That's why I'm grateful for the Masutu woman at the border who was able to connect me. But it's not impossible, but it is just difficult. So I would say that is like the biggest con. It's a beautiful country, and I think a lot of people would love to go and visit, but it can be difficult finding somebody to help you, and finding a tour guide to, do the logistics for you. Um, Also, there are some tourist scams. I was warned about the tourist scams when I first came into the border, and let's just say somebody tried to scam me, but I'm not the one. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So yes, there are some tourist scams because I think people know that there's a language barrier and it's hard to find reliable information when it comes to touring. It's hard to navigate, and some people do take advantage of tourists because of this. So just a heads up, watch out, because there may be some tourist scams. All right. And so let's move on to the last point. Would I live in Lesotho? I would say for me, it would just be too much of a cultural shock. And I really wouldn't even know where to start. I don't speak Basotho. I believe their language is called Basotho. And I just literally would not have any idea on where to even start. There would be a huge language barrier, huge culture shock. And so I think it's an amazing place to visit, but like I said, I'm looking for a place to settle down, and I don't think Lesotho is that place, but I thoroughly enjoyed my experience traveling there. I highly recommend it for tourism, but when it comes to living there, the language barrier and just the difficulty of logistics is just a little too much for me, unfortunately. So my final thoughts is I highly recommend you take a visit. If you're anywhere in South Africa, I think Lesotho is about maybe an 8-hour drive from Cape Town and maybe a 5-hour drive from Johannesburg and even a shorter drive from Durban. So anywhere you are in South Africa, I highly recommend you just stop by Lesotho for a couple days and immerse yourself in the beautiful culture because like I said, I've never seen any landscape like I've seen in Lesotho. And the culture is so beautiful. The people are friendly, and I highly recommend it. So comment below. Do you think you would check out Lesotho? Have you been? What did you think about it? And don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe to join the family. See you in the next video. Peace.